and the opponent has only one Pokemon left, and it's so scared it doesn't even want to come out of its Pokeball. What is going on, everyone? Ox here with another video. If you're new to the channel, we do upload Pokemon GO content mostly related to PvP, and if you're a returning subscriber like Rob Saunders, thank you for the support. In today's video, we are taking a look at some battles in the Open Great League featuring what is considered to be the top performing team for the Great League according to PvPoke. This team is built as a classic ABB line with a Swampert in the lead, which is going to provide solid coverage for the weaknesses of this backline: double normal and flying, Noctowl and Pidgeot. Now, as you're going to see in a moment, this team does not have the best ratings on PvPoke, not even a single A grade. However, as an ABB team, it does work as intended against the main meta. In the matchups where Swampert is losing the lead, Noctowl and Pidgeot are providing great coverage, and in these situations where Noctowl or Pidgeot are being hard countered, Swampert is going to typically do very well against that Pokemon once it comes back in. So without any further ado, let's test out this team in some actual battles. So when we take a look at some of the main threats for this team, what you're going to notice immediately is that most of the Pokemon on this list are actually quite rare to encounter in the Go Battle League, and I think that's actually one of the main reasons why this team is expected to do so well. But in the very first matchup I played with this team, we have a Trevenant in the lead, obviously two good answers in the back, but the opponent takes a bit of time before swapping out, and that of course means they have a very hard counter, this time in the form of Bastiodon. Now, if this is their only counter to a flying type Pokemon, this team is going to work very well because we do lure out the Bastiodon here, at which point Pidgeot would threaten to sweep. However, there's also a possibility that they are running an ABB team themselves with two Pokemon to protect Trevenant in the back, at which point there is nothing we can do. So as you can see, even though Bastiodon farmed down our Noctowl completely, Swampert is able to come back in, tank all of the charge moves coming from Bastiodon while building up to 100 energy. But unfortunately, that energy is all going to waste because the opponent has a Lantern in the back, triple hard counter, nothing we can do. New York Knicks walking into Cleveland game 2. Sometimes you just get beat down, but we move on. Swampert into Alolan Ninetales. The opponent is running Powder Snow, and although we do have access to Sludge Wave, I find the opponents never shield the first move, so I just go for Earthquake. They let it go through. Going to tank the first Weather Ball and then swap out into Noctowl to tank the second. This is going to deal super effective damage. However, taking this damage on Noctowl allows us to preserve the Swampert without needing to invest one of our shields. The opponent comes in with a Shadow Swampert, and at this point I was hoping that I might just be able to survive a Hydro Cannon here, which ideally would allow us to get off a Sky Attack without investing a shield, but unfortunately that was a miscalculation. The one bright spot here is that Pidgeot with Gust and two shields should be able to gust down this Swampert, and considering they brought Swampert in as their best answer to a flying type Pokemon, it is very likely that their third Pokemon is going to be very weak to Pidgeot. So after trying to catch a move onto the Ninetales and resetting their debuff, we are going to go for the Feather Dance here, once again lowering their attack while taking their final shield. Pidgeot is able to gust down, and the opponent does not want to reveal what their third and final Pokemon is, but whatever it was, you can be assured it did not want to see Pidgeot. So in this next battle, we have the Dream Lead Swampert into Bastiodon. Opponent swaps out into Medicham, and now you could safely come in with Pidgeot or Noctowl. The opponent throwing here before Ice Punch, so this has to be a power-up punch. And the most important thing here, of course, is to ensure that you maintain switch. But on this channel, we like to take risks, we like to flex, and we like to BM when we can. So if you need to shield, just do it. But I felt like we would survive. And is it a dumb play to not shield there? 100%. Because as you're going to see, this game does not depend on shields, it depends entirely on switch advantage. And another incredibly boneheaded play was not waiting out my switch timer. Almost cost me the battle, because if that Victory Bell was able to Razor Leaf down before my switch timer came up, which honestly doesn't take too many Razor Leafs against the Swampert, we would end up losing this match despite maintaining alignment. So always make sure to wait out your switch timers, use your shields, and you will avoid the Harry Maguire type plays you see on this channel. Now the opponent is taking this Noctowl to Smackdown Hotel, but unfortunately for them it doesn't matter what they do, because with these mud shots, Bastiodon is in Hydro Cannon range and we are going to outpace to 3. At this point, their only play is to pray to the Hail Mary of lag, but this one looks like it's in the bag. This wall face really thinking it's going to outpace. Hit him with that bang. There it is. So even in a matchup where we triple hard countered the opponent, I tried my absolute best to throw that game, but even a washed up PvP scrub like myself is incapable of throwing a game with such hard counter domination. In this next battle, we are leading Swampert into Noctowl. Not the best matchup here for Swampert, and ideally you probably would want to swap out sooner just in case they do have a hard counter for the flying types in the back. You are going to want to lure that out while preserving some HP on Swampert. But in this particular matchup, I actually allow the Swampert to get quite low before swapping out into our Noctowl, and the opponent comes in with a Galarian Stunfisk. So they do have that anti-flying type Pokemon in Stunfisk. So ideally you would like to swap out sooner just to preserve some HP on Swampert. However, Noctowl does have a pretty decent matchup against Stunfisk now with the Shadow Ball, and as you're going to see, this opponent does get a little bit greedy here with the energy farm, building up to 2 Rock Slides and throwing on CMP, which Noctowl is going to win. A big misplay from the opponent, and they decide to preserve the shield instead of preserving that energy. We swap out to prevent the farm. In comes Pidgeot, and the opponent swaps out into a Swampert. Once again, with 2 shields, Pidgeot should be able to Gust down all the way here, and this is actually one of the particular situations where having Gust is going to outperform Wing Attack. Pidgeot with 2 shields is going to be able to defeat Swampert with Gust because of that raw damage, whereas with Wing Attack, Swampert is actually going to be able to win in the 2 shields. Now we swap out into Noctowl here, and Swampert is going to dump that Hydro Cannon energy. We come back in with the Pidgeot. They swap out into Noctowl, and at this point the opponent is going to throw in the towel. GG. Let's hop into the next one. And in regards to Gust versus Wing Attack, both moves are a legacy move for Pidgeot. PvPoke does actually recommend Wing Attack for this team on Pidgeot. However, I did not want to Elite TM one legacy move for another, so we are rolling with Gust here. It is going to affect a few matchups, but in general, the team is going to perform more or less the same. I believe this could potentially be a Dazzling Gleam, which would likely take us out from this range. However, we like to call the baits, and after the first Weather Ball, we are going to swap out into Noctowl to tank the second. That is going to prevent us from having to burn a shield on the Swampert. And the good thing about this situation is that Alolan Ninetales might be their best answer to our flying types in the back, and with it so low in HP and dry on energy, this game could potentially already be a GG. However, as you could see, they actually have an Azumarill with Ice Beam, so it's still playable for the opponents, but it's really going to come down to what their final Pokemon is. I did invest a shield on the Noctowl there just to put the Azumarill in a range where we could take it out with Swampert or Pidgeot. After allowing the Noctowl to go down, we need to preserve at least 1 shield here. We come back in with the Swampert, the opponent swaps out into Medicham, and with a shield plus Gust, we should be able to do alright against Medicham here, especially if it is not running Power Up Punch. Pidgeot being able to Gust down here is super clutch because now we are basically at a move. The opponent comes back in with a Azumarill, going for the Brave Bird here in case they try to call the Feather Dance bait. They are going to shield. We swap out into Swampert, get to this Hydro Cannon. That is not enough to take out a Azumarill. They come in with the Ninetales Dry on Energy, able to Mud Shot down, and the opponent doesn't want the smoke. Backing out of that matchup, and we take that game. Swampert into Shadow Dragonite. Now this is one Pokemon we do not want to see. Swapping out into Noctowl, and the opponent comes in with a Water Gun Lantern. Even with Water Gun, this is pretty much a matchup that Noctowl cannot win, so there's really no point to shield anything here. Even if we shield up the Thunderbolt, get to another Shadow Ball, it's not going to be enough to KO, and we're just going to put ourselves in a shield disadvantage. So I think the best bet is to play out these 0 shields with the Noctowl, come back in with the Swampert, and hopefully take out this Lantern with a decent amount of HP remaining, preferably with a Hydro Cannon ready to throw at the Shadow Dragonite. But as you can see, the opponent survives with 1 HP, and that is a massive blow. no point to shield up the Swampert, of course, against the Lantern, so we are putting all of our faith into this Pidgeot. And you might say that I am an idiot for that decision, but as you can see, even with Gust doing a lot of damage, Dragon Breath is absolutely chunking away, and we are not even able to get to 1 Feather Dance before 2 Dragon Claws. I don't want any more of this smoke. Going to leave this match early. GG. Let's hop into the next one. Swampert into Toxapex. This is a lot more like it. They swap out into Medicham. We're going to come in with that late swap like a noob, but here comes Pidgeot. Opponent going to throw an Ice Punch, we let that go through. Building up to the Feather Dance. Unfortunately, this is not going to KO, and they're actually going to reach another Ice Punch. Now this time I'm not going to mess around. Pretty sure we will be taken out from this HP range. So we are going to invest a shield, knowing that we will be able to reach a move against that Toxapex. So we'll either deal a lot of damage with Brave Bird or force a shield. I don't think there's any point to go for the Feather Dance here because they're likely going to swap out anyways without throwing a move at the Swampert. They are going to come in with a Swampert of their own, shield up the Hydro Cannon, and then we swap out into Noctowl. Now Noctowl is able to tank at least 2 Hydro Cannons here, and the opponent cannot mud shot down, so that gives us a bit of flexibility here. Choosing to no shield once again on this second Hydro Cannon, and unfortunately it is going to be a CMP tie here. Big decision to make, but I decide to let the Noctowl go down. Now we will come back in with the Swampert, and I was hoping I could outpace to this Hydro Cannon, but once again we are going to lose CMP, and that means we are going to be forced to burn a shield here. That is 2 massive blows already in this battle, and now it's going to come down to a pretty tight matchup here against this Toxapex. Now we are at 2 Hydro Cannons, but this right here was a CMP tie, which means the opponent is going to get off a brine. But are these IVs on Swampert going to be enough? And the answer is yes. Toxapex about to meet the apex predator Swampert in its natural habitat. GG. Let's hop into the next one. Swampert into Shadow Drapion. This is an excellent lead to see, but the opponent swaps out into Azumarill, which puts us in kind of an awkward spot, because although all 3 of our Pokemon do have play against Azumarill, Azumarill also has play against all 3 of our Pokemon. And the thing is, we kind of need Swampert for that Drapion, so this is going to have to be some sort of combo play here. I was hoping to swap into a Play Rough the first time, but we caught an Ice Beam to the face, so this time we do have to shield up. And I'm going to go for the Sky Attack right here. The opponent is going to shield, which means they're going to reach another Ice Beam here. I'm going to shield. I definitely want to maintain Switch here. And at this point, I don't really mind if they let this go down, preserving their shield, because we will be able to get off a Sky Attack against a Shadow Drapion, which is still going to deal quite a bit of damage, and it is going to be a very difficult farm with Poison Sting, so Drapion is going to be forced to dump some of its energy. Now Swampert does have a Hydro Cannon ready to go, but it would be absolutely brutal for them to catch that move onto another Pokemon, probably saving that shield, thinking things would be excellent for Trevenant once Noctowl was out. But in reality, Trevenant was the only thing left to be knocked out. And speaking of knockouts, here's a heavyweight battle. Swampert into Galarian Stunfisk, and the opponent is staying in. Now this could be a little bit risky. Building up to the Earthquake and throwing right away is a potential disaster to watch all of that energy be landed upon a flying type. But not tonight. Delayed. Bang. There it is. They bring in the Medicham, we swap out to Noctowl, and once they start shielding these Sky Attacks, you just know, once they see that Pidgeot, there is going to be no place left to go except top left. Medicham with Dynamic Punch, going to invest its second shield and now take out this Noctowl. 2 shields and 2 Pokemon basically at full HP. Here comes the Pidgeot. At this point, we are going to start investing these shields, and the opponent is now going to swap out into their final Pokemon, which could have potentially actually caught that Earthquake from Swampert at the start of this battle. And at this point, the opponent is throwing in the Noctowl as a literal white towel, surrendering the match. GG. Let's hop into the next one. Swampert into Skarmory, decent matchup here. The opponent swaps out into Vigoroth. This is a bit of a challenging Pokemon for this team, so I'm actually going to throw a Hydro Cannon here before swapping out into Noctowl. This ensures that we will be able to maintain alignment. As you can see, Noctowl doesn't have the greatest matchup here against Vigoroth, but with that Hydro Cannon damage, it definitely becomes playable. Unfortunately though, we are going to CMP tie here, which means we are going to be forced to undercharge this Sky Attack. That is going to allow us to farm up a bit more energy, being able to get off this Shadow Ball against the incoming Skarmory. Unfortunately though, the Skarmory is going to be able to Air Slash down, farming up a bunch of energy, and at this point I believe they're actually one short of the Brave Bird. If I'm wrong and I get hit with it, that's probably GG, but we do correctly call the Sky Attack. They swap out into Scrafty, and here comes the Pidgeot. Now I let this foul play go through, hoping it was a power-up punch. Unfortunately, they did go for the heavier hitting move, and they are going to survive this Feather Dance. While getting off one more move here, I decide to shield that up, and at this point we have a decision to make. Brave Bird would be enough to KO. Feather Dance will likely prevent them from being able to Air Slash down the Swampert. If you expect them to shield, going for the Feather Dance is the correct play, and thankfully we get it right. We now need to outpace to 2 Hydro Cannons, and because of the attack debuff from Feather Dance, Skarmory is not able to Air Slash down, which means that we are going to be able to take that game. Jumping into this next battle, we have Swampert into Defense Deoxys. This is a pretty good matchup for Swampert, however there is a potential to lose in the Zero Shield. Going to go here for the Hydro Cannon. Best case scenario, I would like to catch a Psycho Boost onto the Noctowl. However, sometimes they bait with the Thunderbolt against the Swampert, so there is a little bit of risk involved. I decide to tank that move. They swap out after the attack debuff into an Obstagoon, and we come in with the Pidgeot. Now Pidgeot actually doesn't have the greatest matchup here against Obstagoon. It is pretty much dependent on landing the Brave Bird in order to win this matchup, so just hoping to get a shield and then losing this matchup. The opponent is going to shield up the Feather Dance here and then actually give us a big break by throwing energy. Pidgeot was not going to be able to reach another move, so that is a big break for us. We will now come back in with the Swampert, and the opponent swaps out into Deoxys in the middle of our animation. Very well played. That's going to force a shield from us. We throw a Hydro Cannon and then swap out into the Noctowl. The opponent, of course, is switch locked with a lowered attack, so we are going to tank this Psycho Boost and then farm up some energy here with Wing Attack. The opponent is going to come in with their own Noctowl. The situation is now even on shields at 1 apiece. However, we do have a slight advantage in terms of energy lead in this mirror matchup, and this is a particular situation and perfect example of when it becomes very important to keep track of your opponent's energy. So after shielding here, I did not think it would be possible to Wing Attack down, but I also thought my Swampert had a Hydro Cannon ready to go. So I swapped out. We were actually one short, but the worst part about all of this is that I would have been able to Wing Attack the opponent's Noctowl before they reached another Sky Attack. So there were many mistakes made there in that particular endgame, and it ended up costing us that battle. GG to the opponent, very well played. Let's hop into the next matchup now. The snow has finally cleared up, and it is a bright and sunny day. Swampert into Noctowl. This time we are going to play it out a little bit differently. I'm going to throw 1 Hydro Cannon, followed by 1 Mud Shot, and then swapping out into our own Noctowl, hoping to catch a Sky Attack. The opponent did notice the switch, but dumping some energy anyways, and they're going to stay in here before swapping out into a Mew. So we're going straight for the Shadow Ball right here. Opponent is going to shield that up, and at this point the only thing that threatens to KO is a Wild Charge, and that is going to lower their defense. So they either go for the Wild Charge and get the knockout, lower their defense, or they go for something else which we survive, reach another Shadow Ball. I'm okay with either one. Swampert comes in, we get to this Hydro Cannon, take out the Mew. The opponent comes in with Trevenant, and it looks like they're switch locked. So they are taking significant damage from Gust before being able to swap out into the Noctowl. And at this point, Pidgeot is going to shield everything and Gust down because Sky Attack is doing more damage than anything Trevenant could throw at Pidgeot. And the opponent has only 1 Pokemon left. It's a Trevenant, and it's so scared it doesn't even want to come out of its Pokeball. This should be instant, but the opponent doesn't want the smoke. And whenever the opportunity presents itself, you gotta go for the BM. Earthquake coming through. Bang! There it is. So according to PvPoke, this is the best performing team for the Great League, and it did not disappoint. Over the course of 3 sets, I went 10-5, positive in all 3 sets. And if you're looking for a team that is relatively accessible with an easy learning curve, I would highly recommend trying this team.